Hi everyone. In this video, I'll walk you through 9 most commonly used networking commands that all IT students or computer science or cybersecurity students should know because this would be very useful to troubleshoot and change your network settings. If you are an IT admin or maybe in a similar job, you'll be using this all the time. A lot of these commands are already available in Linux or Mac. Some of these you might need to install, and that's usually very easy, one or two commands. I'm not going to go through the installation process today, but if you face any issues, please leave a comment and I'll get back to you. Now, what's good about this video is not only I'll go through the commands and show you the syntax, I'll also show you 5 troubleshooting scenario examples. These are real life use cases where you'll know how to actually use these commands. So let's get started with the first command, which is ipconfig or ifconfig. Open my terminal. If you want to open terminal in Mac, you can just go to Launchpad and search for terminal. I already got it open. Let's type in ifconfig and press enter or return. Now you get a lot of output, and this can seem a little bit scary, right? But once you understand what the syntax is like, it's not a difficult thing to do. For example, on the left hand side, this is the interface. For instance, this is loopback interface LO0, and this is your loopback address. If you want to know which one is your Wi-Fi, for example, my Wi-Fi address is EN0, and this is where my IP version 6, IP version 4, and so on. Now, how do I know all this, right? So, how do you understand which IP address is what? Now, for this, I recommend you to search on Google. Say, hey, what is the output of ifconfig look like? What does it mean? And you should be able to find a lot of resources to tell you how to parse through this. Now let me show you an example. So if I try ifconfig and I want to know what my IP version 4 is, a quick command on Linux is to use the grep command, which allows us to search, and we search for inet. When you search for inet, it will list all of these addresses. Now, IP version 4 is just net without any 6, and this is my version 4. And you can also get the broadcast address, your subnet mask, which is your net mask, all of these. Now, ifconfig command has been replaced in the modern operating systems by a newer version which is called IP, and it has very similar output but it adds a little bit more functionalities, and the syntax is somewhat different. Let me show you a couple of examples. For example, if you try if IP addr and then show, it will show us similar info. So if you try this and see, we got all the interfaces. So my computer has 21. So that's how we use ifconfig. So anytime you want to know your IP address, your subnet mask, your broadcast address, those things will be here. I'm going to clear the screen using clear. Next, we'll take a look at the ping command. This is probably one of the most commonly used commands to test basic network connectivity between two computers. So if you want to know whether you can reach another computer, it could be your phone, server, a website, you use ping. So for example, if I try ping google.com, we start getting these responses from Google, says 64 bytes from this IP. That means the network is working. Now if I don't stop it, it will keep going. So use Control C on the keyboard to stop it. And we sent 17 packets, we received 17 packets. That means the connectivity is working fine. Now if you don't want all of these packets, right, because this is too much, we can use this -C flag to specify how many packets we want to send. So if you -C, that means I'll send 3. And we see that, okay, 3 packets transmitted and we got 3 more. Now, if you type a IP address that doesn't exist or a wrong IP, you might get a denied request. So for example, if I try, I'm just going to guess, probably this doesn't exist in my network. and we'll see if we can get this. And we see that it's a request timeout, and that means we cannot reach that host. So I'll use Control C to disconnect. All right, next command is gonna be telnet. This may or may not exist in your computer automatically. If you don't have it, you can install it using sudo apt install telnet or using brew. Please look this up on Google. Now, what telnet does, it tests if a remote service is reachable on a specific port. For instance, if we want to check the local host, whether this is accessible using port number say 3306, and we say no, unable to connect to the remote host. So that port, specific port, is not available. Let's try another port. So port 22, this is for secure shell or SSH, and this time around we say SSH 2.0 Open SSH. That means yes, indeed, the Open SSH, that port is available for remote login. Now I'm gonna exit out of this. Okay, so that's telnet. Let me clear the screen. The fourth command we'll try is called ARP, which shows us the address resolution protocol, basically the IP address to MAC address mapping in a network. You can specify a certain interface. For example, you want to check the mapping using your Wi-Fi interface, and it will list all your ARP entries. Now, the syntax is a little bit different depending on whether you are using Linux or Mac. For instance, if you try ARP-N, it will work on Linux, but it doesn't work on Mac. So on Mac, you'll have to use ARP-A, which lists all the current ARP entries showing the IP address, the associated MAC address, as well as the interface used. Now, if I try this, just a warning, it will show you a lot of info. So let's try and see all of these, right? So these are all the mapping I have right now. It shows you that this IP address, this is where your MAC address is, and then your interface. We got some of these here. So basically, any IP address and associated MAC address can be shown using the ARP table. Now, command number 5 is called traceroute, and what this does, it tracks every hop packets since when it leaves your computer and the time it arrives at the destination. So it could be something like some visiting youtube.com, and I want to track how many routers or how many hops my packets go through. So every single hop from your source to the destination. You could try google.com, youtube.com, or any website or any IP address. So I'll try maybe uc.edu, and it's gonna start tracking my first hop. So this entry right here, 1, then this is the IP address for that hop, and we get these 3 timestamps. How traceroute works is it will send 3 packets similar to ping to check how long it takes to arrive at the destination. So each hop, by averaging this, we can get an idea how long it takes to get there. Now you can see for some of the hops, like for example 2, it doesn't show us any info. This is because that particular router or hop, it does not want to share that information about the IP or any delay. So in those cases, you might see that. Now, depending on your destination, this particular example or this particular command could take a while to complete. So I'm going to use Control C to escape. We'll try another example. So instead of this, so let's try a specific IP address. So let's try 10.2.241, and we get that, hey, we needed 4 hops, including the last one, and this is the overall information. So that gives us an idea about the delay and how many hops we are going through. Now our command number 6 is netstat, And what it does, it will list all the active connections on a computer at any given time. So if you want to know which applications or processes that are using the internet connection on your computer at that time, you want to use that command. So netstat, and it will also show you the active ports where those connections are being used. So if you try netstat -an, it will show you the active connections. We get this TCP version 4, which particular protocol, and the receive queue and send queue, these are how many bytes that have been transferred. The local address, this is your IP address, and the port, which is 54145. The foreign address is where the connection is going, as well as we can see the port number and whether the connection is established or not. If you only want to know the port information, because this is already too much info, we could use grep and then listen. So these are the only listening ports that are currently listening on. So we'll try listen, and these are the ports that are being used to listen at this very moment. We could also use netstat to display the routing table, and this shows you the routing table at this time on your computer. So pretty useful info. We get to see the IP address as well as the gateway information and our interface. Our seventh command is NSLOOKUP. This command, it queries DNS servers for name resolution. Like every time you're typing in www.google.com, in the background, we actually have to know the IP address for Google to connect to that website. For humans, it's very difficult to remember all the IP addresses for the websites, right? That's why this is done using DNS servers. Now, if you want to know what is the IP address for google.com, you can use NSLOOKUP and then the website address, and it tells you what the IP address is. For example, Google's IP address right now is 142.250.191 and 132. Why I say it right now? Because some of the websites, for example, Google, they have multiple IP addresses. We could try nku.edu, and it will show us the IP address for NKU and additional info, for example, canonical name and other stuff. If you also want to know the mail servers, we can NSLOOKUP and then type. NSLOOKUP has several different flags. For mail, this is MX, and then let's try gmail.com. This will show us the mail servers for google.com. So these are the info. Our eighth command is route, which allows us to view and manipulate the system's routing table. And this is very similar to what we did using netstat. So similar to netstat, if you want to see the routing table, we'll get, this is the syntax. And I actually prefer netstat for this. It shows us the default gateway configuration on my computer right now. Specifically, I would use it if I want to add a route to my computer. So not just view something, because we can already see the routing table using IP or netstat. So what we can do is we can add a specific route. So that would be sudo, and you need sudo for this. Sudo route-n add. This particular command, if I execute this, it will add a static route to the 10.0.0.0 network via the 192.168.1.1 gateway. I know maybe if you're a beginner, it doesn't maybe make a lot of sense, but those of you who understand the static route concept, the route command will help you to add these routes or delete a route by using the command. So if you want to delete that specific command, you'll just, instead of writing add, you'll write delete. And when you're deleting, you don't actually need the default gateway. So that would be the command to delete the network. Now the last command we'll learn about is called nmap. It's probably not installed on your machine, so please install it following the guidelines available online. Now this tool is very powerful. It's a very useful tool for both attackers and defenders in cybersecurity concept. If you are a network admin, you will use this to scan your network to check for the different computers you have on the network, what ports are open, whether they have any specific services, operating systems that are running on the devices, a lot of info. Now the tricky part is some of the functionalities in Nmap, they'll take a long time to complete. So you can do a deep scan versus an easy scan. So let's start with a simple scan. We can do SN and then the IP address you want to check. So I'll try 10 to 241. This is my network right now. To scan this particular subnet to check which devices are currently online. The scan might take a while depending on the depth of the scan. So this one was a pretty simple scan, and we got that we scanned 16 IP addresses and 4 of those are currently online. So these computers right here, these 4, they are turned on right now and we can see those. Now I might want to know more about this. Maybe, hey, which ports are open there and can we exploit those? Now to check for this, we are gonna do a little bit deeper scan. So let's try, say, I wanna scan 142. So scan 142 and here we try SV. Now to understand what those flags mean, because Nmap has a lot of those, please look at the manual. So this one will show us some detailed info about the host. Now just a warning, it might not work. I'll show you how to use this. So let's try this first. And it shows you this unexpected error, right? Now on Mac specifically, this could be a problem. Linux probably might be fine. So an easy way to fix this is to specify which interface you wanna use. So I wanna use my Wi-Fi interface, and you also wanna use the sudo just to be safe, because sometimes it requires permission. And right now we get to see the info. So it says host is up. We see the TCP SSH is open, which is very dangerous, right? Because secure shell, having that open could be dangerous. We also see the operating system is Linux. Now if you want to try this at home, instead of that IP address, you can use scanme.nmap.org. This is Nmap's own website and it allows you to test these concepts. All right, and we got the ports. So you can see there are a lot more ports open on this device and operating system info as well. Now that is all about the commands. Now the last part of the video, which is the fun part, is how to use those commands. So let's take a look at some sample scenarios and I'll show you the commands to use. Now the first one is no internet access. If you're connected to your Wi-Fi network or Ethernet but can't access the websites, you might use these commands to check the connection. So first you'll try ipconfig or ifconfig, and you could also try ping and then nslookup. You wanna try nslookup 8.8.8. This is google.com, and if you get a response, it says server can't find. We could also try ping and it shows okay, we can reach at the DNS service, so we can reach Google's DNS server. That's good. We could also try ping google.com to make sure that we can reach Google, and if you reach Google but you can't reach others, that might be a problem with that specific website. So this is a way to just check whether you have internet connection or not. The next one would be not being able to access a specific website. So we already saw how to use ping, right? So you try ping and the website, and if it works, then you know that the ping is working, then might be something else going on. We could also use traceroute to check whether that specific website is blocked. So if you go back, so for example, traceroute, and I want to visit a specific website, say wikipedia.org, and if that website is blocked by one of the hops, you'll be able to see where that trace stopped. So that will allow you to get an idea why the connection is not working. Now, if a specific port or service is not responding, so maybe you want to use secure shell or SSH, maybe you want to download something using FTP. If those are not working, you can try Telnet. You can also use Netstat to see if your port is listening or not, or you could also use Nmap to scan. Number 4, if ping is working but website is not loading. Usually this happens is if your DNS configuration is not correctly done in your computer itself, or maybe you're on a university network or something similar where that specific website is blocked. So if you go through their own DNS server, it's not working. So in this case, you'll have to modify the files I listed here on Windows and Linux, but this could be a little bit more advanced. So I don't usually recommend this unless you know what you're doing. The last scenario is if you have unknown devices on the network. In this case, Nmap is very good. You saw that how we could find all the active devices on a network. ARP and Netstat could also be useful. So let's jump to the terminal one last time. So I want to check all these devices that are currently active on the subnet, right? So if you want to do that, I'll try 10 to 241, and it will scan for all the active devices. And we just scanned 64 IP addresses, and we found 11 of those are currently working. So that's the end of the video. I hope it was a little bit useful to get your perspective. What are the different commands and how to get started using those tools. Now in the future, I'll go over each one of these tools, maybe in a little bit more details and more troubleshooting. Please let me know what you want, or if you face any problems in the comment section, and I'll get back to you. Thank you.